Commander Vexthor stood on the bridge of the Crimson Talon, his 6 fingers drumming against the control panel. The patrol had been boring, as it always was in the Kepler 186 Forbidden Zone. Nothing ever came here. Nothing could come here. The Void Belt made sure of that. "Sir, I'm detecting something unusual," his sensor officer said, her voice uncertain. She was young, barely past her training cycles, and Vexthor could hear the confusion in her tone. "What kind of unusual?" he asked, not really interested. Sensor ghosts were common in the Void Belt. The collapsed space-time played tricks on their equipment all the time. "A vessel signature, sir. It's in the middle of the belt." That got his attention. Vexthor walked over to her station and looked at the display. Sure enough, there was a blip on the scanner. "A solid blip, scan again," he ordered. The officer ran the scan a second time. The blip remained. Vexthor felt his chest tighten. This wasn't possible. The Void Belt destroyed anything that tried to cross it. The space-time distortions ripped ships apart at the molecular level. That's why this sector was forbidden. That's why it was perfect for hiding the old military research stations. "Scan a third time," he said, his voice harder now. The third scan showed the same result. Something was definitely there. "Get me details," Vexthor commanded. "Ship class, species, anything you can find." The sensor officer worked quickly, her claws clicking against the controls. After a moment, she looked up at him with wide eyes. "Sir, the computer identifies it as a human vessel." Vexthor laughed. He couldn't help it. "That's impossible. Run a diagnostic on the sensors." "I already did, sir. 3 times. The signature matches human engine design. The computer calls it the UNSC Wanderer, an exploration-class ship." The laughter died in Vexthor's throat. He stared at the display, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Humans were barely capable of basic FTL travel. They had only discovered faster-than-light technology 200 years ago. Their ships were slow, clumsy things that could barely make it across their own star cluster. And they certainly couldn't cross the Void Belt. "How far into the belt is it?" he asked. 3.7 light-years, sir. It's near the old derelict station, Outpost 77. Vexthor felt his blood run cold. Outpost 77 was one of the old Zaltharan research stations, abandoned centuries ago when the Void Belt formed. If humans had found it, if they had accessed the technology inside. "Send a priority message to High Command," he ordered. "Tell them we have a situation. A human vessel has somehow crossed the Void Belt and is currently near Outpost 77. The communications officer worked quickly, sending the encrypted message. While they waited for a response, Vexthor studied the sensor data more carefully. The human ship was small, maybe 1/10 the size of the Crimson Talon. Its power signature was minimal, barely above standby levels. It appeared to be drifting. Maybe it was a derelict. Maybe the crew was dead, and they had simply gotten lucky enough to drift through the belt without being torn apart. That seemed more likely than humans actually finding a way to navigate the impossible region. The response from High Command came within minutes. Vexthor read it twice, making sure he understood. "We're to capture the vessel intact," he announced to his crew. "High Command wants to know how they got here. They want the ship, the crew if they're alive, and any data they've collected." His crew moved efficiently, preparing for the operation. The Crimson Talon began moving toward the human vessel, navigating carefully through the less dangerous edges of the Void Belt. Even here, the space-time distortions made travel risky. Their shields strained against forces that tried to pull the ship in different directions at once. It took 6 hours to reach the location. 6 careful hours of watching sensors and adjusting course constantly. When they finally got close enough for visual confirmation, Vexthor stared at the screen in disbelief. The human ship was intact. More than intact, it looked almost new. There was some wear on the hull, some scoring from micrometeorites, but nothing that suggested it had been damaged by the Void Belt. "Life signs?" he asked. "Detecting 17 humans aboard, sir. All alive. They appear to be waiting for us." Vexthor felt a chill run down his spine. Waiting for them? How did they even know the Crimson Talon was coming? "Put me on an open channel," he ordered. The communications officer nodded. "Channel open, sir. Human vessel Wanderer, this is Commander Vexthor of the Zaltharan patrol cruiser Crimson Talon. You are in violation of quarantine protocols. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded." For a long moment there was only static. Then a voice came through, speaking clear Galactic Standard with only a slight accent. "Commander Vexthor, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Wanderer. With respect, we are not in violation of any protocols. We have legitimate salvage rights to Outpost 77 under Galactic Maritime Law, Article 47. Vexthor blinked. He knew Article 47. It was an old law, something from the early days of galactic exploration. It stated that any vessel discovering an abandoned station in unclaimed space had salvage rights, provided they filed proper claims within a standard year. But how did humans know about it? More importantly, how had they been here long enough to file a claim? Captain Chen, he said slowly, how long have you been in this sector? 3 weeks, Commander. We've been studying the outpost and cataloging its contents. Our claim was filed with the Galactic Council 20 days ago. I can transmit our confirmation if you'd like. 3 weeks. 3 weeks in the void belt and they were still alive. Still functional. Captain, I need to know how you got here. The void belt is impassable. No ship can survive the crossing. There was a pause. When Captain Chen spoke again, Vexthor could hear the smile in her voice. The void belt is impassable for conventional FTL travel, Commander. We didn't use conventional FTL travel. Then how did you get here? We found another way. Isn't that what exploration is about? Finding new ways to go where others say you can't go. Vexthor looked at his sensor officer, who shook her head. She had no answers either. Captain Chen, I have orders to bring you in. High Command wants to speak with you about your presence here. I'm afraid we can't comply with that request, Commander. We have salvage rights. We intend to complete our research and return home with our findings. If your High Command has questions, they can file them through proper diplomatic channels. Vexthor felt frustration building. This human was either very brave or very foolish. Probably both. Captain, you're outnumbered and outgunned. I don't want to use force, but I will if necessary. Commander, I'd advise against that. We've spent 3 weeks getting to know this station and its systems. You might be surprised at what we've gotten working. It was a bluff. It had to be a bluff. The outpost had been dead for centuries, but something in Captain Chen's voice made Vexthor hesitate. Humans had a reputation in the galaxy, even though they were newcomers. They were stubborn, unpredictable. They did things that shouldn't work. That went against all logical thinking, and somehow, impossibly, they had crossed the void belt. Captain Chen, I'm going to request further orders from High Command. In the meantime, maintain your current position. We'll be here, Commander. We're not going anywhere. The channel closed. Vexthor stood on his bridge, staring at the human ship on the screen. It looked so small, so fragile, but it was here, in a place where it shouldn't exist. He sent another message to High Command explaining the situation in detail. Then he settled in to wait, keeping his sensors locked on the Wanderer. The humans had crossed the impossible. What else might they be capable of? That question worried him more than he wanted to admit. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the small conference room aboard the Wanderer, looking at the faces of her senior crew. Marcus Webb, her chief engineer, was grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. Dr. Keiko Tanaka, the xenoarchaeologist, looked nervous but excited. The rest of the crew showed a mixture of both emotions. They're not going away, Marcus said, stating the obvious. The big lizard out there is waiting for orders from his bosses. Commander Vexthor, Sarah corrected. And from what I can tell, he's actually being reasonable. He could have fired on us already. So what's our play? Asked Lieutenant James Park, her tactical officer. We can't fight a Zoltharan cruiser. They'd cut through us like butter. Sarah looked at the data on her tablet. The information they'd gathered from Outpost 77 over the past 3 weeks was incredible. It could change everything humanity knew about their own history. She wasn't going to let it go without a fight. We stick to the law, she said firmly. We have legitimate salvage rights. The Galactic Council confirmed our claim. If the Zoltharans want to ignore galactic law, let them explain that to the other species. You're betting our lives on bureaucracy? Marcus asked, though he didn't sound opposed to the idea. I'm betting our lives on the fact that the Zoltharans care about their reputation. They're not pirates. They're a major galactic power. If they break the law openly, it weakens their position with everyone else. Dr. Tanaka spoke up, her voice quiet. Captain, I've found something else. Something important. Everyone turned to look at her. She pulled up a holographic display showing text in what looked like English, but an older form of it. This is from the Outpost Central Database. It's a message written by humans who were here 200 years ago. The room went silent. Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. That's impossible, James said. Humanity didn't have FTL travel 200 years ago. We barely had colonies on Mars. I know, Keiko said, but the message is genuine. I've run every test I can think of. The language patterns match English from the early 23rd century. The genetic markers in the biological samples we found match human DNA. And the date stamp on the file says standard year 2245. Sarah leaned forward. What does the message say? Keiko read it aloud. To whoever finds this, we came through a doorway in space, a tunnel of light that opened near Jupiter. We thought we were exploring. Instead, we found ourselves stranded, 800 light years from home. The doorway closed behind us. We tried to signal Earth, but we don't know if anyone heard. We built this station to survive, to wait for rescue. But the radiation levels are rising. The station's shielding is failing. We're leaving this message as proof that we were here, that humanity reached farther than anyone back home knows. If you're human and you're reading this, don't give up. Keep exploring. Keep reaching. That's what we do. That's who we are. The room was quiet for a long moment. Sarah felt tears in her eyes but blinked them away. They came through a wormhole, Marcus said softly. A natural one. And it closed on them. And they died here alone, Keiko added. But they left records, maps, scientific data. They spent their last years documenting everything they found. How many? Sarah asked. 37 people. The youngest was 6 years old. The oldest was 62. They survived for 18 months after the wormhole collapsed. Sarah made her decision. We're taking this data home, all of it. These people deserve to be remembered. Their families deserve to know what happened to them. The Zaltharans will try to stop us, James warned. Let them try, Sarah said. Keiko, can you activate more of the station's systems? The scientist nodded slowly. Maybe. I've been working on the power grid. The reactor is still functional, just dormant. If I can bring it online, we might be able to use some of the defensive systems. Do it, Sarah ordered. Marcus, I want you to integrate whatever you can into the Wanderer's systems. We need every advantage. Aye, Captain, both officers said. Sarah returned to the bridge and opened a channel to Commander Vexthor. His scaled face appeared on the screen, looking patient but wary. Captain Chen, he said politely, have you reconsidered your position? I have a counteroffer, Commander. I'd like to meet with you, face to face, on the outpost. Vexthor's eyes narrowed. Why would I agree to that? Because I think you're curious. You want to know how we got here, and I think you're starting to realize that we're not going to just surrender. So let's talk. Diplomatically. Isn't that what civilized species do? She could see him thinking it over. After a moment, he nodded slowly. Very well. I will bring 2 officers with me. You may bring 2 as well. Agreed. Give us 2 hours to prepare a safe docking area. The channel closed. Marcus looked at her with raised eyebrows. You're actually going to meet with them? Yes, if we can make Vexthor understand what we found here, maybe he'll back us up. He seems like a reasonable person. He's Zaltharan, James pointed out. They're not known for their sympathy toward other species. No, Sarah agreed. But they are known for their sense of honor. Let's see if we can appeal to that. 2 hours later, Sarah stood in the docking bay of Outpost 77, watching as the Zaltharan shuttle approached. The bay had been sealed for centuries, but Keiko and Marcus had managed to restore basic life support. The air was stale but breathable. The shuttle landed with barely a sound. The hatch opened and Commander Vexthor stepped out. He was tall, nearly 7 feet, with dark green scales and yellow eyes. 2 officers flanked him, both armed but with their weapons holstered. Sarah stepped forward with Marcus and Keiko beside her. She wasn't armed. She wanted this to be a conversation, not a confrontation. Commander Vexthor, she said, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Thank you for coming. Vexthor looked at her hand for a moment, then reached out and clasped it carefully. His grip was firm but not crushing. Captain Chen, you have impressive courage meeting me like this. Or impressive stupidity, Sarah said with a slight smile. My crew can't always agree on which. That got a small laugh from the commander. I understand the feeling. My officers think I'm foolish for coming. Then we're both taking risks. Let me show you why. Sarah led them deeper into the outpost, to the central chamber where Keiko had set up her research station. The walls were covered with displays showing data, images, and text. This outpost wasn't built by Zaltharans, Sarah said. It was built by humans, 200 years ago, before we had FTL travel. Vexthor stopped walking, staring at the displays. That's impossible. That's what everyone keeps saying, Sarah replied. But the evidence is right here. 37 humans came through a natural wormhole. They got stranded. They built this station to survive, and they left behind everything they learned, hoping someone would find it someday. She pulled up the message on the main display. Vexthor read it slowly, his translator working to convert the Old English into Galactic Standard. They were colonists? He asked. Explorers, Sarah corrected, just like us. They didn't know where the wormhole would take them. They went anyway, and when they got trapped, they didn't give up. They worked. They studied. They documented. They left a legacy. Keiko stepped forward. Commander, this outpost contains information that's valuable to all species, not just humans. The colonists documented spatial anomalies throughout this region. They mapped the void belt in detail. They even theorized about how to navigate it safely. And did their theories work? Vexthor asked. Marcus grinned. We're here, aren't we? Vexthor looked at the human engineer with new respect. You used their research to cross the void belt? Partially, Sarah admitted. They gave us the foundation. We built on it. Instead of trying to punch through the void belt with FTL drives which tears ships apart, we went around the distortions. We used conventional sublight drives, gravity assists, and cryosleep. It took us 14 years to get here. 14 years? Vexthor repeated, stunned. Subjectively, only 8 months for us because of time dilation and cryosleep. But yes, we launched from human space 14 years ago. We committed to this mission knowing it would take decades. Vexthor walked around the chamber, studying the displays. Sarah could see him processing the information, understanding what it meant. Your species crossed an impassable region using slow, primitive methods, just to find out what happened to colonists from 2 centuries ago. They weren't just colonists, Sarah said quietly. They were us. They were human, and they deserved to be found. Vexthor turned to face her. High Command wants this station. They want the technology, the data, everything. I know, Sarah said, but it's not theirs. It's ours. We have legal salvage rights. More importantly, we have moral rights. These were our people. High Command doesn't care about moral rights. Maybe not, Sarah agreed. But you do. I can see it in your eyes. You understand? Vexthor was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, a battle group is on its way. They'll be here in 3 days. And they won't be as patient as I am. Sarah felt her stomach drop, but she kept her expression neutral. Then we have 3 days to figure this out. Captain Chen, I can't help you. I have my orders. You can't help us, Sarah said. But you don't have to stand in our way either. Vexthor looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned and walked back to his shuttle without another word. The 3 days passed too quickly. Sarah spent every waking hour with her crew, preparing for what was coming. Marcus worked around the clock, linking the Outpost's ancient systems to the Wanderer's computers. Keiko continued her research, downloading every piece of data she could find. The rest of the crew practiced emergency procedures and ran simulations. On the morning of the 3rd day, the sensors detected multiple FTL signatures approaching. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Wanderer, watching as 5 Zaltharan warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the void belt. Well, Marcus said from his engineering station, they're not messing around. Ship classifications? Sarah asked. James checked his tactical display. 1 battlecruiser, 3 destroyers, and 1 carrier. The battlecruiser is the flagship. I'm detecting the signature of Admiral Krenth. Sarah knew that name. Admiral Krenth was famous in the Zaltharan military, and not for his diplomatic skills. He was known for aggressive tactics and a complete disregard for anything that wasn't Zaltharan interests. Incoming transmission. The communications officer announced. Put it through, Sarah ordered. A face appeared on the main screen. Admiral Krenth looked even more imposing than Commander Vexthor. His scales were darker, almost black, and his eyes were cold and calculating. Scars crossed his snout, evidence of a long military career. Human vessel Wanderer, he said, his voice harsh. I am Admiral Krenth of the Zaltharan Imperial Fleet. You are ordered to power down your systems immediately and surrender both your vessel and outpost. 77 to Zaltharan Authority. Sarah took a deep breath. Admiral Krenth, I am Captain Sarah Chen. We have legal salvage rights to this outpost under Galactic Maritime Law. Those rights were confirmed by the Galactic Council. I don't care about your salvage rights. Krenth said bluntly. This is Zaltharan territory. Everything in it belongs to the Empire. This sector was unclaimed space when we filed our salvage claim. That makes it legally ours. Krenth's laugh was unpleasant. You think galactic law applies here? You're 800 light years from anyone who cares about your legal claims. Now power down or I will power you down. Sarah felt anger rising in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. Admiral, we are not a military threat. We're an exploration vessel. We came here to find our missing colonists. That's all. Your colonists have been dead for 2 centuries. They don't need you anymore. But the technology in that outpost, that's valuable. And it's mine. It's not yours, Sarah said firmly. And I won't let you take it. Krenth's eyes narrowed. You won't let me? Human. You have 1 small ship and 17 crew members. I have 5 warships and over 2,000 soldiers. You can't stop me. Maybe not, Sarah admitted. But I can make you explain to the Galactic Council why you attacked an unarmed vessel engaged in legal salvage operations. I can make sure every species in the galaxy knows that Zaltharan honor is worthless. For a moment, Krenth looked genuinely surprised. Then he laughed again. You think I care about my reputation? I care about results. You have 10 minutes to surrender. After that, I'm taking what I want. The transmission cut off. Sarah looked around her bridge at her crew. They were scared, she could see it in their faces. But they were also determined, Marcus, she said quietly. Tell me you got the station's defenses working. Most of them, Marcus replied. The shield generators are online. We have about 40% power available. The weapon systems are trickier, they're old, and I'm not sure how reliable they'll be. But yes, we can shoot back. How long can we hold out? Marcus hesitated. Against 1 ship? Maybe an hour. Against 5 minutes. Captain, we can't win this fight. We don't need to win, Sarah said. We just need to make it costly enough that Krenth has to think twice. She opened a channel to the entire crew, both on the Wanderer and in the Outpost. All hands, this is the captain. We knew this might happen. We came here to honor the memory of 37 people who died far from home. We came here to bring them back to humanity, even if only through their stories and their data. I won't order any of you to fight. If you want to surrender, I'll understand. But I'm not giving up. Not on them and not on us. She waited for responses. One by one, every crew member confirmed they were staying. Sarah felt pride swell in her chest even as fear twisted her stomach. Keiko, she said, start transmitting all the data we've collected on an open galactic frequency. Everything about the colonists, about the outpost, about what we found here. I want every species in range to receive it. That will take time, Keiko warned. And it'll make us easy to target. Do it anyway. If we're going down, at least the story will survive. Keiko started the transmission. Sarah watched the countdown clock. 8 minutes until Krenth's deadline. Then another voice came over the communication system. It was Commander Vexthor. Captain Chen, this is the Crimson Talon. I'm approaching your position. Sarah felt a surge of hope. Commander, are you here to help us? I'm here to do my duty, Vexthor said carefully. And my duty is to uphold Zaltharan honor. Admiral Krenth is acting against galactic law. I cannot support that. On the tactical display, Sarah saw the Crimson Talon moving to position itself between the Wanderer and Admiral Krenth's battle group. Krenth's voice came over the channel, filled with fury. Vexthor, what are you doing? Get out of my way! No, sir, Vexthor replied calmly. These humans have legitimate salvage rights. They came here following proper procedures. They filed legal claims. And they've discovered something important, not just to them, but to all species. I've been monitoring their transmission. The data about the Void Belt alone is worth more than any weapons technology we might gain. I don't care about data, Krenth shouted. Move your ship, Commander. That's an order. With respect, Admiral, I refuse. These humans earned their right to be here. They crossed the impossible to find their lost people. That takes courage. That takes determination. Those are qualities we Zaltharans claim to value. If we attack them now, we prove that our honor is just empty words. Sarah held her breath. The tactical display showed the Zaltharan battle group moving closer, but Vexthor's ship held its position. Vexthor, Krenth said, his voice dangerously quiet. You're committing treason. I'm upholding the law, Vexthor corrected. Something you seem to have forgotten. Captain Chen's transmission is being received across the sector. The Galactic Council is monitoring this situation. Every major species is watching. If you attack now, you attack with witnesses. Are you prepared to explain to the Galactic Council why you violated established law? Sarah could see Krenth's face on the screen, twisted with rage, but she could also see him thinking, calculating the political cost of what he was about to do. Finally, Sarah spoke up. Admiral Krenth, I'm making you an offer. The data we've collected about the Void Belt, the maps, the navigation charts, the theoretical models, I'll share it with all galactic species, including the Zaltharans. Free of charge. No conditions. You think that's enough? Krenth demanded. I think it's more than you'll get by attacking us, Sarah said. Right now you look like a bully trying to steal from explorers. But if you accept my offer, you look like a leader who found a diplomatic solution. Which story do you want the galaxy to tell about you? Krenth was silent for a long moment. Then another ship appeared on the sensors, a vessel Sarah recognized as belonging to the Galactic Council's Observer Corps. They had been monitoring after all. A new voice came over the communications channel. This is Observer Telvan of the Galactic Council. I have been recording this entire exchange. Admiral Krenth, I strongly advise you to consider Captain Chen's offer. The Council is very interested in the data she's willing to share. Krenth looked trapped. He glanced between his displays, probably seeing the same thing Sarah saw, the Crimson Talon blocking his path, the Observer Corps recording everything, and the political disaster that would come from attacking now. This isn't over, he finally said, but I'll accept your offer, human. Share your data, and then get out of this sector. We'll leave when we're done with our research, Sarah said firmly. We still have salvage rights for another 11 months. Krenth's jaw clenched, but he nodded curtly. 11 months. Then this outpost becomes Zaltharan property. Actually, Observer Telvan interjected, the Council will need to review the status of this outpost. Given its historical significance to humanity, it may be declared a protected heritage site. That clearly hadn't occurred to Krenth. He looked furious, but there was nothing he could do. With a last glare at the screen, he cut the transmission. Sarah slumped in her chair, suddenly exhausted. Her hands were shaking. They'd won, not through firepower, but through law, honor, and the courage to stand their ground. Captain, Vex Thor's voice came through, quieter now. That was well done. Thank you, Commander. I couldn't have done it without you, perhaps. Or perhaps you would have found another way. Humans seem to be good at that. Sarah smiled. We try. Commander, when this is all over, I'd like to buy you a drink. Assuming you drink? I do, Vex Thor said, and Sarah could hear the smile in his voice. And I'll accept. It will be interesting to hear the full story of how you crossed the Void Belt. It's a good story, Sarah promised. It took 14 years, but it's a good story. The next few weeks felt almost peaceful after the confrontation with Admiral Krenth. The Wanderer's crew continued their research at Outpost 77, carefully documenting everything they found. Commander Vex Thor's ship stayed nearby, officially to monitor the situation, but Sarah suspected he was actually protecting them from any other Zaltharan vessels that might get ideas. Sarah stood in what had once been the colonists' living quarters. The rooms were small and simple, designed for function rather than comfort. She could see where families had tried to make them feel like home. Faded decorations on the walls, scratches on the floor where furniture had been moved, even a child's drawing tucked behind a loose panel. They lived here for 18 months, Keiko said softly, standing beside her, knowing they were stranded, knowing rescue probably wouldn't come. But they didn't give up, Sarah said. They kept working. They kept hoping. Keiko nodded toward a wall where names had been carved, 37 names with dates next to them. Birth dates, Sarah realized. The colonists had marked their birthdays even here at the end of everything. The youngest was Emma Kowalski, Keiko said, 6 years old when they arrived, 7 when she died. The radiation sickness got her first, according to the medical logs. Her parents died a week later. Sarah felt tears sting her eyes. Have you identified all of them? Most of them. We're still running DNA analysis on some of the remains we found in the medical bay. But yes, we know who they were. The expedition was led by Captain Thomas Chen. Sarah's head snapped up. Chen? Your ancestor, actually. I checked the genealogical records. He was your great-great-great-grandfather. You're directly descended from him. Sarah felt her knees go weak. She sat down on one of the old bunks, staring at the names on the wall. One of them was her family. Her blood. He volunteered for the mission, Keiko continued. When the wormhole appeared near Jupiter, The United Earth government put together an expedition. Everyone knew it was dangerous. Everyone knew they might not come back. Thomas Chen volunteered anyway. His wife and daughter went with him. They knew the risks, Sarah whispered. They did, and they went anyway. The same way you did? Sarah looked at Keiko. Did I inherit this from him? This need to explore? Maybe. Or maybe it's just what humans do. We see something unknown and we have to investigate. We can't help ourselves, Marcus's voice came over the intercom. Captain, you're going to want to see this. We found something in the main computer core. Sarah and Keiko hurried to the control center. Marcus had several displays open, all showing complex data streams. What am I looking at? Sarah asked. A map, Marcus said excitedly. The colonists spent their last months mapping the entire region. They documented every spatial anomaly, every radiation pocket, every gravity well, and they found something incredible. He pulled up a three-dimensional star chart. At the center was the void belt marked in red. But there were lines threading through it, safe paths where the distortions were minimal. They found navigable routes through the void belt, Marcus said. Not all the way through, but enough to cut travel time significantly. If we use these paths combined with our slow travel method, we could reduce the crossing time from 14 years to maybe 7 or 8. That's still years, Sarah pointed out. Yes, but it's progress. And look at this. Marcus highlighted another area of the map. They detected stable wormhole signatures here, here, and here. They're dormant now, but the colonists theorized they might open again under certain gravitational conditions. Natural wormholes, Keiko breathed. If we could predict when they'd open, we could use them for fast travel, Marcus finished. No FTL drives needed, just patience and good timing. Sarah studied the map carefully. This was more than just historical data. This was a potential revolution in space travel. Not for species with advanced FTL technology, but for younger species like humanity. A way to reach distant stars without needing technology they didn't have yet. Make copies of everything, she ordered. Multiple redundant copies. This is too important to risk losing. Over the next few days, the crew worked to verify the colonists' data. They sent probes into the void belt, testing the safe paths. They monitored the areas where wormholes might form. Everything checked out. The colonists' work was accurate. Commander Vexthor visited the outpost again, this time bringing his science officer. They reviewed the data together, the Zaltharan becoming more impressed with each discovery. Your ancestors were remarkable, Vexthor said to Sarah. They faced certain death and used their time to help future generations. They were scientists and explorers, Sarah said. That's what we do. We try to leave things better than we found them. Not all species think that way, Vexthor observed. Many would have spent their final days in despair or anger. Some of them probably did, Sarah admitted. Their personal logs show they struggled. They were scared. They were sad. But they kept working anyway. Vexthor's science officer, a younger Zaltharan named Skelmar, spoke up. Captain Chen, this data changes everything we know about the Void Belt. With your permission, I'd like to share it with the Zaltharan Science Academy. Share it with everyone, Sarah said. That's what we're here for. The colonists left this information for whoever found it. It belongs to all species. You don't want to profit from it? Skelmar asked, surprised. How do you profit from knowledge? Sarah replied. The more people who have it, the more useful it becomes. Besides, if this helps other species explore more safely, that's worth more than any amount of money. Vexthor nodded slowly. You continue to surprise me, Captain. Most species would guard such valuable information. Most species didn't cross the Void Belt using 14-year-old colony ships in pure stubbornness, Marcus said with a grin. We're not like most species. As the research continued, Sarah noticed something interesting. More ships were arriving in the sector. Not Zaltharan military vessels, but scientific ships from various species. The Andorian Institute sent a research team. The Pleiadian Collective dispatched observers. Even the reclusive Centauri monks sent a small vessel to study the outpost. Observer Telvin contacted Sarah directly. Captain Chen, the Galactic Council is very interested in your findings. They're considering declaring this entire region a protected research zone. What does that mean? Sarah asked. It means no military operations, no resource extraction, no colonization. The outpost and the surrounding space would be preserved for scientific study, and as a memorial to your lost colonists. Sarah felt a wave of emotion. They'd do that? Your discovery has captured the imagination of many species, Telvin explained. The story of humans crossing an impassable region to find their lost people has spread throughout the galaxy. It reminds us all why we explore, why we push boundaries. The Council wants to honor that. Thank you, Sarah said quietly. That means more than you know. Weeks turned into months. The crew of the Wanderer continued their work, now assisted by scientists from a dozen different species. The Outpost became a hub of research activity. Temporary habitats were set up around the station. Supply ships came and went regularly. Sarah worked alongside xenoarchaeologists, astrophysicists, and engineers from across the galaxy. She shared everything her crew had learned, answering questions and offering insights. The collaborative atmosphere reminded her why she'd become an explorer in the first place. Not for glory or profit, but for the simple joy of discovery. One evening, as Sarah was reviewing data in her quarters aboard the Wanderer, she received a message from Earth. It had taken months to arrive. Traveling through the communication relays, she opened it eagerly. It was from her mother. Sarah, we received your transmission about the colonists. About Thomas Chen, I had to sit down when I heard his name. Your father always told stories about our ancestor who disappeared on an expedition. But we thought they were just family legends. You've proven they were real. You've brought him home in a way. The whole planet is talking about what you've done. They're calling you heroes. But I just want to say I'm proud of you. Not because you're famous, but because you did the right thing. You went looking for people everyone else had forgotten. That's what a Chen does. That's what Thomas would have wanted. Come home safe, sweetheart. We miss you. Sarah played the message 3 times, crying quietly in the privacy of her quarters. She thought about Thomas Chen and his family, dying so far from home. She thought about the 37 colonists who had kept working even as hope faded. And she thought about her crew who had committed to a 14-year journey for people they'd never met. Humans were strange, she reflected. They did impossible things for irrational reasons. They crossed impassable voids for the sake of memory. They risked everything for principles that couldn't be measured or quantified, and somehow, impossibly, it worked. The next morning, Sarah called a crew meeting. We've been here for 4 months, she said. We've documented everything we can. We've shared our findings with the galaxy. The colonists' story is known. Their sacrifice is honored. I think it's time to go home. The crew looked relieved. They'd done what they came to do. Now they wanted to see their families, their homes, their planet. But first, Sarah continued, we're going to visit every one of those potential wormhole sites the colonists mapped. We're going to verify their data. The Wanderer left Outpost 77 3 weeks later, its databanks full and its crew ready to go home. But they weren't going back the way they came. Sarah had a different plan. The closest potential wormhole site is 2 light-years from here, Marcus said, studying the colonists' maps. According to their calculations, it should become active every 18 months when the local binary stars align with a nearby neutron star. And when's the next alignment? Sarah asked. In 6 days. Sarah looked at her crew. They were tired, eager to get home. But she could also see the curiosity in their eyes. After everything they'd been through, they wanted to see if the colonists' theories were correct. 6 days, she said. We can wait 6 days. The Wanderer traveled to the coordinates the colonists had marked. It was an empty region of space, nothing visible except distant stars. They set up monitoring equipment and waited. Commander Vexthor's ship followed them. He'd been reassigned by Zeltharan High Command, officially as a liaison to the human expedition. Unofficially, Sarah suspected he'd been sent to keep an eye on them and make sure they didn't find anything else the Zaltharans might want. But over the months, Vexthor had become something more than a monitor. He'd become a friend. Do you really think it will work? He asked Sarah during one of their regular communication sessions. The colonists were smart people, Sarah said. Their other data was accurate. Why not this? Because wormholes are unpredictable. Even if one forms, it might not be stable enough to use. Then we'll go back to doing things the slow way. Either way, we learn something. Vexthor made a sound that might have been a Zaltharan laugh. You humans and your optimism. It's almost charming. Almost. I'm still deciding. On the 6th day, the sensors detected gravitational anomalies. Small at first, barely noticeable. Then stronger. Space itself began to ripple like water disturbed by a stone. Something's happening, Lieutenant Park reported from the tactical station. Gravity readings are spiking. Spatial distortion increasing. Sarah gripped her chair's armrests. Everyone to stations. Marcus, get ready to record everything. Already on it, Captain. The space in front of them began to twist. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Light bent around an invisible point, creating a swirling pattern of colors that shouldn't exist. The void itself seemed to tear open, revealing something beyond. Wormhole formation confirmed, Keiko announced, her voice shaking with excitement. It's stable. At least it appears stable. How long will it last? Sarah asked, unknown. The colonists estimated between 30 minutes and 3 hours based on similar phenomena they observed. Sarah made her decision quickly. Send a probe through. Let's see where it goes. They launched a small probe into the wormhole. It disappeared instantly. For several long minutes there was nothing. Then data started coming back through. The probe is intact, Marcus reported. It's transmitting from... Captain, it's in the Kepler-62 system. That's only 200 light-years from Earth. Sarah's heart raced. 200 light-years. That was practically in humanity's backyard compared to where they were now. If they could take this wormhole, they could cut their return journey from 14 years to maybe 2 years of conventional travel. What are the readings on the wormhole's stability? She asked. Holding steady so far, Keiko said. But I'm detecting fluctuations. It could collapse at any time. Sarah looked at her crew. This was the moment. They could play it safe, go back the way they came, spend another 14 years in cryosleep. Or they could take a chance, trust the colonists' research, and possibly get home in a fraction of that time. Commander Vexthor, she said over the open channel. We're going through. Captain, wait, Vexthor started. We didn't come this far to play it safe. The colonists gave us this map. We're going to use it. She could see Vexthor on the screen, clearly torn between caution and curiosity. Finally, he nodded. Then the Crimson Talon is going with you. That's not necessary. It's not about necessity. Vexthor interrupted. You've shown me that exploration isn't just about finding new things. It's about honoring those who came before. Those colonists were brave. You're brave. The least I can do is be brave with you. Sarah smiled. Thank you, Commander. All ships prepare for wormhole transit. Full power to structural integrity fields. Everyone strap in. The Wanderer moved forward slowly, approaching the swirling tear in space. Sarah could feel her pulse pounding in her ears. This was it. The moment that would either vindicate the colonists' work or kill them all. The ship reached the event horizon. For a moment, everything went strange. Colors shifted. Sounds became distorted. Sarah felt like she was being stretched and compressed at the same time. Her stomach lurched and she tasted metal. Then suddenly it was over. The view screen showed normal space. Stars she didn't recognize, but the sensors confirmed it. They were in the Kepler-62 system. We made it, Marcus said, his voice filled with awe. We actually made it. Cheers erupted across the bridge. Sarah let herself smile, feeling tears of relief and joy. They'd done it. The colonists' research worked. Crimson Talon report, she called out. We're intact, Vexthor responded. He sounded shaken but excited. That was extraordinary. Captain Chen, do you realize what this means? It means we can go home, Sarah said simply. But she knew it meant more than that. It meant the colonists hadn't died for nothing. Their work, their research, their final gift to future explorers, it all mattered. They'd found a way through the impossible and now others could follow. The journey home took 2 years. 2 years of conventional FTL travel, hopping from system to system, stopping at stations for supplies and repairs. The Crimson Talon accompanied them most of the way, only breaking off when they reached the border between Zaltharan and human space. This is where we part ways, Vexthor said during their final communication. It's been an honor, Captain Chen. The honor was mine, Commander. Will we see each other again? I expect so. I've been appointed as the Zaltharan ambassador to Earth. It seems my superiors think I understand humans now. Sarah laughed. Do you? I understand that you're stubborn, unpredictable, and you do impossible things for reasons that make no logical sense. And somehow, impossibly, those things work out. That's as good a description as any. Take care. Sarah Chen, your ancestor would be proud of you. The Crimson Talon turned and accelerated away, disappearing into FTL. Sarah watched it go, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and satisfaction. They reached Earth orbit 3 weeks later. Sarah stood on the bridge looking at the blue-green planet below. She'd left 16 years ago by the calendar, though only 3 years had passed for her. The world had changed in her absence, but it was still home. Earth Traffic Control, this is the UNSC Wanderer requesting docking clearance. Wanderer, this is Earth Control. We've been waiting for you. Welcome home, Captain Chen. Welcome home. The landing was a media event. Thousands of people gathered at the spaceport. News drones filled the air. Sarah and her crew descended from the Wanderer to find themselves treated like heroes. But Sarah insisted on something else first. Before the celebrations, before the interviews, before any of it, there was something that needed to be done. The remains of the 37 colonists were brought home with full honors. A memorial service was held at the United Earth Government headquarters. Each colonist was named and honored. Their families, descendants who had never known what happened to their ancestors, finally had closure. Thomas Chen was buried with military honors. Sarah stood beside his grave, her mother beside her, placing flowers on the fresh earth. "You found him," her mother whispered. "You brought him home." "He showed me the way," Sarah replied. "He and the others. They left breadcrumbs for us to follow." The memorial became permanent. In the center of humanity's largest spaceport, a monument was erected. 37 names carved in stone with their story told beneath. They crossed the impossible and died far from home, but they left us a map to the stars. Sarah's crew returned to their lives. Some retired. Some joined new expeditions. Marcus became head of human FTL research, using the colonists' data to develop new navigation techniques. Keiko opened a museum dedicated to early human space exploration. Lieutenant Park joined the military, training the next generation of explorers. As for Sarah, she was offered a promotion, a desk job, a comfortable retirement. She turned them all down. "I'm an explorer," she told the United Earth Government. "That's what I do. That's what Thomas Chen did. That's what humans do." 3 years after returning home, she left again. A new ship, the UNSC Pathfinder, with a new crew and a new mission. There were more wormholes to find, more impossible regions to cross, more mysteries to uncover. Commander Vexthor visited Earth to see her off. He brought a gift, a Zeltharan star chart with human notations combining the knowledge of both species. "Where will you go?" he asked. "Everywhere," Sarah said with a smile. "Everywhere we're not supposed to be. And when they say it's impossible, we'll prove them wrong. Again." Vexthor watched the Pathfinder launch, rising into the sky until it was just a point of light. Then even that disappeared. He thought about humans and their strange, stubborn determination. They couldn't accept limits. They couldn't accept impossible. They always found another way. The galaxy would never be the same.